Okay, we're continuing with our discussion of risk management at Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae. And with this talk, I want to talk about three components that are closely related. The first we call reps and warrants, or representations and warranties. And what these are is they're part of the contract between the seller and we'll call it the GSE, government-sponsored enterprise, Freddie Mac or Fannie Mae. That the contract says that when the seller sells the loan to Freddie Mac or Fannie Mae, the seller is representing that the loan meets the underwriting standards and guidelines, and it warrants that that those representations are true and that the seller has carried out the underwriting steps that Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae require. So it's the contractual relationship that exists between the seller and the government-sponsored enterprise. So it's the terms under which the loan is considered sold to Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae. So in particular, if those terms are violated, then Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae can take action. And I'll skip to this third step, which is repurchase, which is the seller must buy back a loan that violates any of the reps and warrants. So, for example, if if the loan is supposed to have a borrower debt-to-income ratio of no more than 33%, let's say, and a subsequent analysis of the loan shows that the borrower's total debt-to-income ratio, monthly debt payments to income at the time of the origination, was actually 40%, then legally the seller could be required to repurchase the loan. And the way these reps and warrants are tested is a process that I've referred to before, quality control, or QC. So that Freddie Mac will take or Fannie Mae will take a sample of the loans that come in from a seller. Let's say the seller sends in 100 loans, and the Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae might usually take 5 of those loans, ask for the loan files, put an underwriter on those loans, and re-underwrite those loans. And if it discovers that some of the reps and warrants have been violated, will require the seller to repurchase. And of course, Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae will be especially careful to re-underwrite loans that default early. So any loan that defaults within, it's called an early payment default, and any loan that defaults within, let's say, first 12 months will be automatically re-underwritten and scrutinized very carefully, because there's sort of a presumption that the loan was not underwritten properly. And so Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae would look at that loan, and if they find violations of the reps and warrants, they would require repurchase of the loan by the seller. So these sort of three things go together, that as part of the contract, the seller is guaranteeing the loan in some sense was properly underwritten and meets the standards and the underwriting guidelines that Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae have issued. Then for some sample of these loans, they will be re-underwritten 5 Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae. And if violations are found, then they require that the seller to repurchase. And sellers hate this kind of repurchase process. It's a constant source of friction between the seller and Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae because sometimes the seller argues, well, you let this loan go through, it seems similar, why didn't you let this other loan go through? So you get a lot of friction over that, but this is the kind of the stick that Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae hold over sellers to make sure that they are meeting the reps and warrants. Because if a seller has to repurchase the loan, that's going to tie up capital, that's going to put the seller at some risk, because if the loan defaults and the seller hasn't sold the loan to Freddie Mac or Fannie Mae, they're on the hook for default. So there are lots of reasons why this is a stick that is a valid threat that keeps sellers from trying to pass through loans that don't meet the reps and warrants. That's part 2 of risk management.